Good day, everybody. We are reading from Gavin Newsom, Young Man in a Hurry, a Memoir of Discovery. Today we're starting in chapter 3. The geographic distance between my father's life and our lives had an impact on my relationship with my paternal grandparents, he says. Our visits with them were few and far between, I'm guessing because they lived in the Marina District of San Francisco and we lived across the Golden Gate in Corte Madera, and a visit would have required my father's driving in from Tahoe City or Dutch Flat to take us there. The paucity of memories I have of them is surely a consequence of this. Then again, I was 9 when Grandpa Newsom died, and 11 when Grandma Newsom died, and maybe memories don't plant themselves in children that young, especially a child whose brain was trying to sort out its scrambles. Mom was too busy juggling chores at home and chores at work to act as a conduit. Besides, her relationship with the Newsoms never seemed all that warm, at least by the account of my mother's older sister, Cindy. Aunt Cindy was a pistol of a woman married to actor Ed Asner. Ooh, her third go around, and over the years she took it upon herself to fill in many of my blank spots. When I questioned her about one detail or another, she did not endeavor to find polite words for people or things. I appreciated her blunt honesty, though at times what came out of her mouth made me wince. Your mother called your grandfather Mr. Newsom. Can you believe that? Mr. Newsom. For Christ's sakes, that was her father-in-law. She was his daughter-in-law. You would have figured that someone in the Newsom family, your father for one, might have said, Tessa, Mr. Newsom isn't necessary. Or better yet, your grandfather himself would have had the decency to say, Tessa, I'm Bill, or how about Papa to you? It is hard to reconcile Aunt Cindy's severe view of my grandfather with the oral histories of my father and Uncle Brennan and Aunt Barbara. The three siblings detail the delightful foibles of friends and family members, but the stories they tell about their father cast a far more glowing light. They find few, if any, faults in his makeup. Even the tales of his nursing pints of Seagram's 7 they recalled with admiration. The boss could hold his booze like no one they knew, they said. He would never be caught in the bag. Under his command, their house was, to use a 50-cent word, an agora. Agora. Latin, that means field. My Aunt Barbara said. The boss, a consummate chef, was the one who prepared the Sunday lamb. And it wasn't merely the Getty boys who sat around the table and benefited from his sage mentoring. He did the same with their other friends, boys and girls whose family did not have a lick of wealth. Years later, these friends, now grown, would approach my father or one of his siblings at the market or dry cleaners or at a social gathering and ask, do you know what your father did for me? Or say, you have no idea what it was like to be at your house. What a pleasure it was to be at your house. In their telling, the boss was a mathematical genius, open minded, generous, community spirited, a lover of the Swedish tenor Jussi Björling, and a despiser of Senator Joseph McCarthy and his miserable band of red hunters. He would not join the most blue blooded social clubs of San Francisco because they forbade Jews. God, I don't think he knew 5 Republicans, my father quipped. The front door of my grandparents' house was never locked, and into the entry walked a burlesque of California dreamers. There was the Hoover vacuum salesman, Mr. Lorenzo, a narcoleptic who, without fail, fell asleep on the couch while demonstrating the sucking power of his latest model. Shh, my grandma Newsom would whisper to her children, index finger to her lip. Can't you see Mr. Lorenzo is sleeping? There was Tom Kyne, Kyne, one of the old Irish types who lived in a downtown hotel. He held the title of the city's betting commissioner. And if anyone thought this was an official position, they'd be incorrect. Kine was a bookie and fixer who put up half the money for Pat Brown's first campaign, though Brown probably never knew it because my grandfather, who raised the money, never told him. If some poor guy died in the streets, Kine would pay for the funeral. My grandfather was not shy about his affection for Kine, not even after the Kefauver Committee shut down his bookmaking operation in 1946. He regarded Kine as a type that had disappeared from the earth. Solid guy, my father recalled. Solid. Word was his bond. Not to be forgotten was the down and out stranger with the thickly brocaded Scottish accent who stood on my grandparents' front porch on a very hot day. Do you think a fellow could get a drink of water here? The Scotsman asked my young Uncle Brennan. The boss, seated in the living room, overheard the man. Fine, he said. Have him come in. So the stranger came in and sat down and was promptly served a glass of water. He finished the drink, but the boss kept proceeding in his utter absorption of the man. He went on and on. My father entertained the guy for an hour and a half, Brennan recounted. When the man finally departed, Brennan thought his father must have done the immigrant a terrible disservice. He probably gave the guy the wrong idea about what America was really like, that everybody was like my dad. My dad was a very engaging person. My grandfather Newsom was walking with a cane by the time I have a distinct memory of him. He sat in his throne chair in his parlor and read from a wide collection of dime store paperbacks, an endless array of cowboy books, adorned with Western themed covers that always grabbed my attention. I'd enter his domain, curl up beside his feet, and try to answer the questions he tossed down to me every few pages. How was school? Was surely one of his inquiries. What was I to tell him? How is life on the other side of the bay? Do you miss San Francisco? I can't imagine he asked me if I missed my father. I tried to describe to him my awe of those bus rides over the Golden Gate to the city and my fascination with the people who would lose all hope and jump off the bridge, down, down, into the choppy waters of the bay, only to live and tell the story. He asked if any girl had caught my fancy. I was a boy with a bowl cut and had no such story to tell him, and then he put down the paperback and he had me stand up next to his chair. We were now eye to eye. Where's the dollar bill? He asked. I knew the game. It was our one ritual. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a crisp one. Can you catch it? You gotta be quick, Gavin. I nodded and positioned my left hand in front of him, with thumb and forefinger stretched out sideways so that only a thin bit of space was between them. It wasn't an easy catch. He didn't dangle the dollar bill above my hand. Most of it was already past my thumb and index finger as he held it there. His own fingers were stained antique yellow from a lifetime of cigarette smoking. Ready? He asked. Yes, I nodded. Set. He let go of the dollar, and by a force of gravity I could not reckon, it slipped straight between my thumb and finger. I missed it by a whisker. He laughed. You're fast, Gavin, but you have to be even faster. Try it again, I said, picking up the dollar and handing it back to him. He let it go, and I missed it a second time, and he couldn't stop laughing. I shot him the most determined look and went inside my head to find a zone of concentration. He changed none of his tactics to make the challenge easier. I missed it a third time and came away with the lesson that gravity, like my grandfather growing old, could not be beat. That's when Boss Newsom, taking pity on me, handed me the dollar bill and said, It's yours. But not quite yet. He grabbed my arm and made me wrestle him for it, a pull that always knocked me backward when he finally let go of the bill. You got it, he said, giggling to himself. We climbed into his old beige Cadillac, windows smoke fogged. The family story was that he had inhaled more King Sano cigarettes, mildest of the mild, all that joyous aroma but less nicotine, than any single person alive. The words on the pack were the product of the tar wars of the 1950s when cigarette makers were using health claims to sell their deadly cartons. I harangued him to no end, and to no avail about giving up the habit. He lit up a Pall Mall, his new brand of choice, and drove up onto Chestnut Street, the Marina District's main commercial strip, where all our family's favorite haunts hugged the boulevard. There was Luca Deli, the donut shop, the magic store, the toy store where Dad took us shopping when with Paul Getty Jr., and O Sole Mio with its red and white checkered tablecloths, and pizza that came out of the oven so hot that the cheese slid off if you didn't fold the crust. Okay, so here we will. Okay, I'll read one more paragraph. As soon as he parked the car, as soon as he parked and climbed out of the car, another ritual began. Every half block, my grandfather on his cane encountered another friend or acquaintance or business partner from the old days. They called him the mayor of Chestnut Street for good reason. Yes, he had built their neighborhood by piling dirt on top of sinking marina ground, but he was their neighbor above all. And together, what a neighborhood they had created, full of Irish and Italian and Jewish success stories, people of climbing wealth who were shedding the old ways by marrying across ethnic lines and embracing what it meant to be a Californian. Or so I gathered in the sunlight of their chatter and from what I've managed to piece together in the years since. Okay, so we will continue on this next week. This is so enjoyable to me. He's got a memory of himself when he was 9. His grandfather was alive until he was 9. Let me see. Um, 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 mm, Here we are. And it was nice to see you all again, and I will talk to you again later. Okay, old Kinderheck.